Meeting to order. After a moment of silence, I'm going to ask Mr. Flainer if he would lead us in a pledge.
I'd be honored, sir.
Thank you.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know, right? I mean, what the heck? Okay, I'm gonna start with this list as is, and then if, Mr. Brendan's gonna be available till a little after 5, if some of these take too long, we may move around just a minute in case anybody has a question. They would want to ask, but I think we'll be good. First thing would be technology expenditure authorization.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna ask Curtis Fulbright to tell you where the money came from, then I'll ask Brad Hale to tell you why you need to know about it. Curtis?
Thank you, Dr. Flannery. Back when the COVID hit, and the state contacted us in the late spring, and in an effort to help fund what was necessary for this virtual learning, they agreed to reimburse us $200 for every 3 devices that we purchased between March 1st, 2020 and September 15th, 2020. At the time that was sent to me, we had already ordered about 600, and with plans on July 1st to order that big shipment that took so long to get to us, as well as some additional ones. Between this district and University High, that totaled 2,500. Just a second. 2,450 devices. So, dividing that number by 3, they were going to reimburse us for 816 devices at $200 each. As time went along, for whatever reason, more money became available, and it ended up that they reimbursed us for each of those devices $321.74, coming to a total of $262,538.05, of which University High would get $16,000 and some change. So what Mr. Hale is going to tell you is that there's $246,451.16 from this grant that is available to us. Any questions before Brad takes it from here? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and this is a little unique in the way the revenue stream works on this grant, because the way we were reimbursed is through a federally funded grant, and how we reimburse ourselves is on the accounting side, is we write a check from this federally funded grant, Remote Technology Learning Grant, and I reimburse the general fund for that. And that's unique because normally that's not how flow works through federal grants, but this one again is unique. And I wanted to make sure the documentation was in order, so talking with the state auditors, they're telling me the way that they will be requiring us to do this is I will basically transfer the money from the federal fund now that we've received it, and I'll do what's called a miscellaneous refund to one of the technology expenditure lines, which is where the Chromebooks were originally purchased from. So what that will do is it won't come in as revenue to the general fund, it will come in as an expense reduction to one of Curtis's lines, which means we now are going to have about $246,000 we can spend. The board does need, well, I'll let Dr. Flannery and Curtis talk about the details of what the idea is and where we could really build the IT infrastructure. We've got a unique opportunity here to really set our infrastructure, well, Mr. Fulbright told me, at a step above, and a unique opportunity to not have. But to do the purchase, we still require board approval because the auditors would look at the equipment that we need to purchase to do this. That's what's called a special purchase under policy 2.805. And I'll just read a line or two, but special purchases are those which are not routine and which may or may not specifically be identified by a line item in the budget, and we are going to identify it in a line item. But special examples of special purchases are all capital expenditures such as vehicles, buildings, major contracts, etc. But in a nutshell, they're telling me that you as the board will need to formally approve us to spend that money. As Mr. Kirk, like I said, Mr. Fulbright, Dr. Flannery, has come to the way to really put us on another level and prepare for the future with what's needed with technology, these streaming, bandwidth capabilities, and so forth. So, but we'll still need your approval, even though it technically is budgeted, and we have the funds now, we'll still need your approval to do that.
Anybody?
So what are we approving to do? What are we buying?
Go ahead, Curtis.
Well, again, as Brad mentioned, this is an opportunity. It's not something that we absolutely have to have right now, but it will put us in a posture to be able to run 10 gigabits at our 4 largest schools in the next 2 years. What I would do with this is purchase the switches so that we can transmit at a much faster rate than we are now. This is for things like videos, for the virtual tools that we're using now, like iExcel, Canvas, and the like. Boones Creek Elementary being one of those schools, we would be able to convert almost immediately because they have the proper wiring already. We would have to, after placing this equipment at the other 3 schools, which is the high schools and Ridgeview, what would happen is that we would put this new equipment in and we would still run at our current capacity or speed. And what we would do is we'd have to go in there and install the wiring. You can think of it as a higher gauge wiring for, as an analogy, to drive some electric equipment. Once we put that in place, then we can bring those folks to 10 gig as well.
Curtis, is it fair to say that every bit of this will go above the ceiling where nobody will ever see it?
Correct, correct.
And it'll take all that to do that.
Yes, it will.
Will the teachers be able to, if they are virtual, I hope I'm asking this right. The way I hear it now, the teachers does not have enough gigabytes to teach virtual in person or live, I guess.
No,
Is
we're okay right now.
Okay, all the teachers,
Well,
old school,
some people will, when they complain to us about things being slow, it's not a bandwidth issue. Could be any number of things.
okay. So this won't have
Like
a
what?
bearing on it.
One of the things that we found is that on a Chromebook, there'll be multiple applications that have been loaded on the teacher's device. They think it's going to work fine, but in actuality, it's just slowing down the application that they're trying to use.
And that's because the machine is not as
Correct.
good, that it needs to be better for the
No, it's
teacher?
not because of the machine's probably fine. To
I
make
don't
it,
know, I'm asking questions, because I don't have a clue about computers, but I'm hearing a lot of parents, and a lot of people that's really complaining about the internet service and our technology. If it's
really,
as it's, you sit there and watch it, and it's slow, it's jerking, Now, I guess that's where it's coming from, their internet service, right? The parents' internet service?
It could be your house, yeah. You
Yeah,
may
I
not
mean,
be-
I understand that.
No way I can control that.
Well, I understand, but
How much do we say, I'm sorry,
go ahead, yeah.
how much do we say this was?
46.
Did we
Right.
get, was we getting a refund on them textbooks over just, was that in that budget report last week?
Purchase last year.
Yeah, that we overpaid and y'all was trying to get the money back.
We sent back everything that we could send back, yeah.
So did we get that money back? Have we done anything with that money, or how much was it?
I don't know.
Could it be applying to this?
There was no refund in real dollars. There was an invoice that was significant, it was greatly reduced. We had to settle that, it was $31,000.
Okay.
Plus the other 200 and some thousand we went over?
I think it was 185 over. I'll have to I can look the final number up here.
First, what about Jonesboro? With Jonesboro, would we have enough funds since it's gonna be a new school?
Oh, that's,
Is it already in?
I'll make
this?
plans for that when we
Okay,
get there.
okay. So we actually have Boones Creek, Ridgeview, Jonesboro, and the two high schools.
Nope. Ridgeview, Boones Creek, and the two high schools.
Okay. But Jonesboro
And
will be
those-
wired for it, I guess.
Yes, Jonesboro will be one.
Okay, just they just won't have it yet.
Yes.
Okay.
Clear as mud?
Where's mine?
Which school did you say this would be installed in?
Boones Creek, high schools, Ridgeview.
You need a motion, Jason?
Yeah, Mr. Irvin's got a,
let Chad go ahead.
go ahead, sorry.
Would it not make sense to just put this down as a wish list and we know we got 246 that'll pay for that?
Well, I
Instead of
think
just go ahead and prove it, or do, I
what
mean, that's
Mr.
my,
Irvin's saying is, what about everybody else? We're just doing for a school.
That's my argument.
well, if you do the rest of the schools, and that's already 246,000, I guess we could put 800,000 for the rest of them.
Well, I mean, that's the thing.
Well, he's speaking the
May I
larger
ask
schools.
you to
I
clarify
think.
what you mean, what about everybody else?
Well, he was saying, like you said, it's gonna cover high schools, Ridgeview, Boones Creek, and then what about all of our other schools?
We would get those the following years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're gonna stop here. Because remember, folks, we're fine right now with bandwidth at our schools. I'm not talking about your parents that are complaining, okay?
Yeah.
We don't have to have this right at this moment. That's why those other schools will be fine until I have the opportunity to install switches at maybe the next 4 largest schools after
Yeah.
that.
You just didn't say.
Yeah, we just don't
How
have
long
cash
does
flow
that
to do
last,
everything.
Curtis? Like what you're putting in today, is the way you're talking, it's gonna be 6 years before everybody gets one. Cause these gonna be, I don't know how it works, I don't understand that.
I think I can have it done in 3 years.
Yeah, and then we'll start over probably again.
Well, I don't know. 10 gigabits is gonna last us a long time.
Okay, that's out of my.
That's why it's a unique opportunity.
Okay.
When you say opportunity, is there some kind of grant or funding that we're applying for, or is this just an option for us to get ahead of the game?
This is money that we've received based on a grant from the state that we have an opportunity to use at this moment. I don't want to, for example, I don't want to buy Chromebooks right now because all they do is sit in the warehouse and use up their, what is called the automatic update for the Chromebooks. I don't want to buy those until we need to.
I understand.
Yeah,
So
so,
this is the money, this is not affecting our budget. This is a grant
yes,
that we
correct.
have written. So this has nothing to do with our budget
Correct.
at all. Okay.
It's part of the state.
I know that Mr. Day was talking about finding money, and I didn't understand why he was trying to find money when I thought that that's what he said, it was great.
And the auditors, that's the only that needs to be used in technology, since it's a technology reimbursement grant.
Yes, I understood that, but he was talking about textbook reimbursements, and
I lost you, didn't I?
you did, because that had nothing to do with the grant.
Okay.
So,
I'm just agreeing
so can I make
We need a motion.
Sure.
I make a motion that, we use the grant money to purchase switches for the 10 gigabytes at the first four schools. The first of,
Boots Creek, High Schools, and Ridge.
and I second.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
Well, I,
You
I'd really like to see us focus on, I mean, are we coming back to school? Is all kids gonna come back to school in August?
We don't know. We don't know what.
All right, then if we don't know that question, don't we need to really focus on our virtual and try to help all kids that's gonna stay home and be virtual?
Okay, well, here's what I think Curtis is purchasing.
I know what Curtis is doing, I know exactly what he's wanting to do, and that'd be a good thing. But I'm looking at people that's complaining about our virtual, and, you know, you got teachers that's complaining about they can't do both jobs.
Let's ask this question, Curtis. Is this gonna make a difference if you don't do this? Is it gonna change anything for our virtual?
No, it's not.
Okay.
But can we put this money into the virtual?
That's what I was saying. If it makes a difference.
Why wouldn't it make a difference if we focus it into virtual? I mean, I think that's a director's, what, you know, Johnson City's talking about having a virtual school.
They are
Yeah.
doing with, actually, it's a remote learning school is what it is, because you actually have a teacher teaching those kids all day long.
All right.
So virtual, there's a difference between virtual and remote learning. Virtual is whenever they have a program online and they go through and click and they do their work and they communicate email-wise over. Remote is what we've been doing, is where there's an actual teacher in front of them. I think it would be, you know, in our best interest to look at a remote learning academy for next year, because I do not think there's going to be, I don't think everybody's gonna return. I still think there's some kids that are going to stay out. But that being said, that has nothing to do with what Curtis.
That's right, so let's vote on it. Can we, anything else? Let's vote. Jennifer, please.
Ready? Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
No.
Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Carries.
Okay. Flannery, you want me to read this from Mr. Hutton on the brick?
Oh,
Next
yes,
on the
please.
agenda is brick repair, Gray Elementary. Dear Philip, we received bids for the work on February 25th, 2021. Bids were received from two general contractors. I have attached our bid tabulation form. Holman Construction Company, Inc. was the low bidder at the bid of $823,834. The bid is within our estimate. The bid amount appears to be reasonable. I have discussed the bid with Doug Holman. He has no reservations or concerns with this bid. Based on the information available to me and my past experience with Holman Construction, I recommend that the contract be awarded to Holman Construction, Inc. If you have any questions, please feel free to call me, Steve Hutton. Now, questions? Mr. Fleener.
Dr. Flannery, when we talked about this before the bid was coming in, there was concerns that the contractor had about this work. Is there any more concerns with that? I know the letter says no, but that's what Mr. Patrick alluded to when we talked about it during the workshop.
All I can fall back on is what the architect said. I do know that you've got a funding issue, but I told you about that the other day. I can cover it if you need to. I have no information that would suggest that this contractor's not capable of doing the job.
Anybody else? Mr. Flanagan?
Is there a warranty on this of some sort?
I don't know.
So your warranty would be on workmanship and, installation of what we call L coils that go into the masonry, then it's when it's back up, but, it'll be your typical contractor's year warranty.
Well, Mr. Hutton will inspect this for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we should. Since he designed it.
6 months construction process, 175 days.
Sir?
6 month construction process, 175 days.
Yes, sir.
I mean, how does that, I mean, is that, how do you fit that in with the school year? instead of-
We're gonna be working during school. We're gonna have to, we can't get it all done. Actually, the mason, Jack Tyler, has got some men available. They want to start as soon as possible and we start working at, 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Put up lights and work 8 hours. And then when summer comes, and they'll start back in. But I was talking with the principal at Gray, and we just couldn't rationalize having men there during the school day. I mean, the kids and teachers been through enough, they didn't need to fight that battle too. So it'll be after school, and then the contractors will come in, get busy, and get going by the time we get back.
Because they were going to grind mortar.
Yeah.
That'd be great during school time.
You gotta get the hammer drill, put the elbow in.
Will they be working at night?
Very labor intense.
Will they be working at night too?
Yes, sir. Until school is out for the summer.
3 to 11. Yes, sir, Mr. Flanagan.
So the funding problem, Dr. Flannery, what's the fix for that?
I'll need the board to authorize the expenditure of $81,834 out of the general fund, and as well allow the director, myself, or the subsequent director to go to HEW and ask for that much money be appropriated from capital projects. With any luck at all, the invoice won't come due until the commission covers the shortfall.
And that needs to be a part of the original motion, correct?
Yes, sir, or an amendment, either way.
If we can get that motion.
I'll make that motion. You'd allow it. I'll make a motion, we go with Holman Construction and for this brick repair, and that also that the director go to HEW to find the 81,000 and some odd cents, whatever it is, Dr. Planner, if you'll provide it to Jennifer again, to see if we can get them to fund the remainder that their shortfall is.
We got a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any more discussion?
So, we're saying that the short 81,000 is what we need to ask for from commission.
Yeah, you can't start the process until there's enough money, and you don't have enough money.
Okay,
So
you
this,
just said-
this motion will give us enough money to start it, and then I'll go to HEW, or somebody will go to HEW and ask for $81,834 in capital funds.
Okay, thanks.
Good.
Good.
Anybody else? Roll call, Jennifer.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin? Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am?
Mr. Hammond?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Carries.
Moving on. Consideration of sale for former Boones Creek Middle School property. Any thoughts on that? I got one, nobody does.
So have we offer $1.2 million, correct?
Well, I think we need to do it right now. We decide exactly what we want to count on for. They'll stop that. It's been working well.
That was gonna be a lot.
So here's what I think. You wanna go first? You want me to go first? I would counter offer at 1.4. That gives you a million, little overs change. Give them their 6 months with a bump clause after 3 months. Because it's gonna take us several months to tear the building down anyway, and you really don't wanna lose. The thing about it is, they're really just buying it if somebody else is buying it for them. So, it could come together, it may not come together, you don't wanna lock it up forever, I think. Mike, what do you think? That's what I would do.
Well, I mean, my only thought is, number one, I'd like to know who they are, other than a name. Well, I do, because if they're buying for somebody, I wanna know who they're buying it for. If they're buying it for
They
farmland,
probably
then it's a
tell it,
different
though.
story, but, well, I know, but we can, once we find out who it is, we can research them a little bit, see who they build for. If it's a Fortune 500 company, I just don't wanna take a chance on losing them over $200,000, my thought.
Okay,
I mean, you know, if we counter back at 1.4, that's asking price. You know, I mean, that's just my thought.
I think they were at 1.2 if we tear it down, I figured if we go back at 1.4.
Well, we go back at 1.3, and that clears right out of millions.
Well, tear down's 375, isn't it?
Well, that's true, yeah, I was thinking it's 3, you know.
Really, you need to be more like 1.4 something if you want $1 million, but.
I'd like to see us just go ahead and tear it down. If they're
Well,
still
we are.
interested.
We're gonna tear it down anyway.
That's
Well, I understand that,
second.
but let's go on and tear it down and see what we've got out there. They're gonna look at it and they'll say, boy, that building's gone now. That's a pretty valuable, they may be a lot more people be interested in it.
Well, they'll have an opportunity if you put a bump clause in the contract, all the other people you're thinking will have an opportunity.
Well, too, according to what I read from Scott Bennett, if we accept their offer, we're still gonna be able to market it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it ain't, we're not taking it off the market,
right.
you know.
See, Keith, if you do it that way, it's still on the market, you do still have your buyer on the hook. And if they don't buy it, we don't care, because like you said, we'll tear it down and somebody else come along, but
We get a better offer in the process.
they gotta step up and step out.
They, basically, they got a right of first refusal.
Yeah.
What do you mean by bump clause?
If somebody comes along, like, we'll give them 3 solid months to do their due diligence, but our contract will be for 6. If nobody comes along in 6 months, that's great. If somebody does come along, say we tear the building down like Keith said, and everything looks great, you got another buyer, then that means this party has to either buy it or get out of the way because somebody else is going to.
Well, they're gonna buy it or
Well, they got their choice.
they're gonna
We have
accept
to ask
it.
them first.
Yeah.
Let me ask you,
Whitney may come offer 1.5 million for it.
now who gets that? Us or the people that's paying 1.4 for it?
No,
No.
no,
They're
we're
not buying
controlling it.
Yeah.
They just, if we agree to their terms or whatever we counter, what Jason's saying, after 3 months, if we get a better offer, then we can go to them and say, look, here's what we've got. Would you wanna, go ahead and purchase? If not, then we can move forward with the new ever next.
As long as we ain't obligated to take that 1.4 from this other bunch unless it's not. You see what I'm saying? I want to get.
Well, by contract, you can. I'd like to count back at 1
You're,
point.
you're wanting to have it, Keith, to where if
Well,
somebody comes in a better offer than this bunch has got to pay more.
That's right.
It don't work like that.
all right, then let's get the thing tore down and then we'll put it back on the market.
All right, well, let's do this. Somebody make a motion to do something.
I make a motion, we counter the offer under their terms of due diligence at 1.362, whatever the demo is, and that makes us clear at 1 million.
You want to say 1.7375?
Yeah, 1.375.
Well, net of commission,
And we'll net,
net of commission.
yeah.
Well,
Well, I didn't
Commission's
want
more
to counter back at asking, I want to give them a little bit of business.
So 1.375, we tear it down. Now, what
3
else?
months of, give them 3 months of due diligence with your, you call bump clause, and give them their 6 months due diligence.
3 months bump after the first.
That's the first 3.
Yeah.
And that way we still control pretty much everything.
All right.
Don't you work for this company? Don't you work for whoever that is?
I don't work for the company buying
The realtor? You work for the realtor?
it. But I'm a contractor, I don't have nothing to do with this deal.
Everybody's independent.
And I'm independent, I work for myself.
I think we'll let it go to the chief. After we get this thing tore down. I'm gonna keep working.
Did you second that for you? Does anybody second that motion? All right, got a first and a second. Everybody understand the motion? 1.375, we proceed and tear it down. 6-month contract, 3 months solid, 3 months bump clause. Good? Okay, Jennifer, let's vote. Yeah, Whitney.
Well, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, what we offered, are they gonna come back with like 1.2500 or something?
They could.
They might.
Well, we have only let ourselves go with that group at that amount, right?
Yes.
The amount that we've asked.
Yes. They made an offer with county.
Okay.
They can say
Yeah,
no.
this ain't the end of it, I mean, but no.
Yeah, if they say no, then we're done, unless we want to recount or they want to recount.
But we need to do something so we can start tearing it
But we,
down.
okay, what I'm asking again, we definitely are having it torn down, and at this time, we don't have it in the hands of anybody.
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
that's correct.
So if somebody wanted to walk up and say, I'll give you 1.5, who do we even?
Until we sign on the dotted line, we can call whoever we want to handle it.
We're under no obligation.
Yeah, we don't have any real.
But if we pass this motion, we did.
No, we don't. You don't have a signed contract by nobody.
We're just we're countering their offer, is all we're doing.
It ain't binding until we all sign. Yeah, you
I want
still.
some Delta points.
They're probably not gonna take it anyway.
We're negotiating, is all we're
Yeah.
doing.
All right, let's vote, Jennifer.
Mr. Masters,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. Irvin,
No.
Ms. Buchanan,
No.
Ms. Dellinger,
No.
Mr. Fleener,
I'm gonna say no too.
Mr. Hammond,
No.
Mr. Meredith,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes. Okay, now give us a new suggestion, someone.
I make a motion, we spend $362,000 to tear it down.
We
We've
already,
already done that.
they start the 22nd.
Yeah.
Going down.
Can I get a better motion than that?
You have, are we too much out of the ballpark at 1.4500?
I don't know, y'all voted no, tell me.
I mean, it's been on the market for a year, and you had one offer, now we're turning down.
$25,000.
If you net around $1 million on that property,
Oh, my
you're
goodness.
gonna really good. I don't think unless we bring $1.5 million or $1.8 million, that property only worth what it's worth, and that's probably worth it.
The only value is where the school's sitting.
The only
It's only
reason
about 3 acres.
The only reason they're paying as much as they are, because they got somebody online. They wouldn't buy it just to sit on it.
If they're a developer, they've got somebody that they could possibly sell it to. And my question was, I want to know who they develop for.
So,
If it's a major company, then, you know, we're crazy if we don't
Keith,
include.
the other option is don't do nothing, let's just vote to do nothing.
Let's
That's
tear
my
it down,
motion.
and then, I mean, get her tore down, then we'll.
You gotta have
Make
it.
that formal, please.
put it
You don't need it,
in somebody
do you?
else's hands
Just do
to
nothing.
get-
Well,
We gotta have-
what do
we
we
gotta
need
get
to
each
tell
other
them
an
we're
answer.
out?
The time's done right, if the time runs out, they're done, right?
All right, we're out, let's move on. Budget FY 22,
Oh. Never mind.
we're done, we're tearing it down. Don't play.
Just about 2 or 3 minutes, we got some IT computer stuff going on.
Are you serious right now?
Yeah, so it'll be okay.
Can I bring some of this up or not?
Yeah, go ahead.
Give me about 2 minutes.
I don't know if I need a motion or not, but I'd like to, based upon what I read today, Johnson City's got their fields open for summer ball. Whitecalk and Kingsport's open theirs up 1st of April. I'd like to go ahead and get ours open up 1st of April for our summer tournaments.
Are they closed?
If I need a motion, I will. If not,
Do we need a motion, Dr. Flannery, for that?
I believe they're already scheduled.
Yeah, but that's what I was asking.
I mean, you've got schools open, why wouldn't you open the ball fields?
He's
Other
not
than-
for travel.
I'm talking about the travel ball.
The only consideration might be is to let the school teams use it until school's out. I mean, that's the only hope. And then let
I'd
them
like to
go in
let
there
them
and
start
make.
in April on weekends, if we can, like we have in the past.
Well, that's only kind of.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, just on weekends.
Like most of the time. Our biggest problem, just let me explain my point of view, our biggest problem when we do weekend tournaments, I've got a crew of men that are out at Ridgeview and Grandview and probably each high school, because they'll lay it over sometimes to the high school field. They're out there and they have to wait for school ball to finish practicing on Friday evening, and then prep the field for Saturday morning. That's overtime you're playing. If you don't mind paying another time, I don't care what.
I mean, we've done it for 10 years, I didn't know if we.
Sir?
We've always done it that way, I didn't know.
I didn't think we started tournaments until after school ball.
We
No.
started tournaments in
No,
March
we have
for
them
years.
50 weekends a year if you let them in there.
I just,
Grandview, not always, but Ridgeview's
Ridgeview,
booked.
yes.
They play Easter Sunday if you'd let them.
It's just logistically easier if we wait till after school.
It'll cost you money, and
We'll
That's it.
do our best to get it done.
they go ahead and turn them loose.
I mean, I just brought it up because, like I said, Jump City's open, of course, they don't have to deal with school, you
Right.
know.
That's it.
Eastport doesn't have to deal with schools, White Top doesn't deal with, White Top may with Bristol.
I don't know either.
All right, so we're done until school's out.
Well, we can
I
let
don't
them
know,
in
that's
there.
what we're asking.
I mean, if the board wants us to let them in there, they're your fields.
Well, we gotta pay overtime for everybody, they gonna pay more,
We can, we don't.
because we went through all this.
I thought we
Last
had
2
our
years.
process to make sure that we were paying for that.
You did. If you price yourself out of the market, they'll just sit there in.
Right, but we
Did we raise it last year
did, we raised it last year,
to cover this?
No, we said we weren't gonna let them use it till after
School.
school ball
Yeah,
last
we
year.
didn't.
Is that it?
But we did raise their price to meet.
I mean, I didn't remember all that, but I told you, but yeah, we did, I remember that. So we did raise price, didn't we? Because that girl come.
We met the other prices, that's what we,
Yeah,
Do you?
so we still said no, till school's out.
Because they came,
All right.
I can
Year
Okay,
four last,
then we met
did,
with
because I
them, but
helped work down there.
I don't know that, I'd
We
have to
did.
look
I don't
back.
remember raising prices.
We didn't pay
I'd have
last
to
year.
look back, but
I don't know, yes, sir.
let's just think about it and put it on the agenda for next week's, next board meeting. Decide the next board meeting.
Okay. Come prepared, be ready.
Put it on that day.
All right, Brad, your 2 minutes is up.
Okay, so, I've just got the 2 main documents pulled up here that we went over last time. I'll give you a few minor updates. And first, before we get started, I did get an email from Mary Ann Dursky, and she is an executive director of finance for the Department of Education. She's the one that basically gives us all the updated information on the state funding. So this email came just Saturday, and I won't read the whole thing, but there is part of it I will read. It says the first BEP estimate is scheduled for sometime in April. I've always got that first one, March 20th to the 25th, so, you know, unless I get an update, they may be a little behind this year getting that out. So that being if that's the case, I will just immediately let Dr. Flannery know as soon as I get that first BEP estimate. If, you know, if something happens and it does show up next week like I was hoping, I'll let y'all know immediately. But that will just prevent us from really locking down our revenue projections until we get at least that first estimate. So, just to give you an update on that. The changes that to this first document, and this plays with my format a little when I put it on this screen, but the changes to this first document was requested last time. And the changes we made was breakdown of the cost of increasing principal supplements by $5,000 separate from assistant principals, at 3,000, so I've done that in this line item here, and you should have copies of this as well. So you'll see where I broke it down right here, principals 5K, assistant principals 3K. You can go on out and see the effects of that. Second was to separate the reoccurring and non-recurring costs in the optional budget. So the costs we must have, it's going to happen anyway, now we're under the optional budget, so we've separated those. You can see recurring expenses starting here, and then non-recurring expenses starting here. A few minor changes to the items you'll see on here from the last meeting. And one of these is a counselor at Midway who's requested, and then this last item is a maintenance employee compensation increase request from Patrick of 10% on gross pay, and the cost of that is out to the side here as well. That was to the maintenance staff employees, custodial maintenance staff. It did not include Mr. Patrick himself or supervisors who are directly under Mr. Patrick, because they're on a system-wide supervisor pay scale. The other thing, and other than separating it, that is the changes on this list. Now, at some point here, hopefully within the next month, I will have an estimate on the health insurance. Right now, you'll notice at the top, there's no number there, just because we've received no guidance yet as to what to expect, if any, increase in health insurance premium. But that would be the one thing up top that could very well change. The other thing, when I go to the main budget document, that I did have to update, and this is because this is related to the textbooks, actually, because if you'll notice on the first document for textbooks I've got for next year, they're down here in the non-recurring right here. It's a $535,000 decrease in spend compared to last year, because we had a budget of $885. So I had actually already put that in the budget that I showed you last time, and shouldn't have, because technically you as the board have to vote on that. So what I have done in the main budget document, instead of making this textbook $350,000, I took it back to $885, just until you as the board decide what we're going to do. I'm assuming you'll reduce that anyway, but to stay in line with the numbers on the other sheet, I took that back to $885 in this line for textbooks, even though we know we don't have that many. I will update that at your all's direction when we go through the list. But what I had done is I had changed that and left it in over here under the optional expenses, which was going to make these numbers a little off at the bottom. So that's the extent of what's been changed right now. I did have an update, and this might be something that Mrs. Hayes wants to share with you. It's something that she polled principals about additional instructional assistance. And should I just let you go over there? Would you like me to read it?
You can read it if I have
Okay,
questions.
so this is what Ms. Hayes got back. She polled principals about additional instructional assistance. 2 mentioned that they could use 1 or more if the opportunity arises. Overall, they would rather see class size reduction or reduction in sizes than additional funds for additional IAs. So they would rather see, that would be more teachers. Is that correct, Cindy?
Right.
And then the next one is, it was also suggested that maybe an IA at some of the schools to rotate between data clerks or front office staff and RTI intervention support. But that was some of the feedback that Cindy got. So with that, that's kind of an update of where we are. So
Well, I agree. I would like to see more teachers. I'm not so sure that may happen, but I agree with the principal. So I'll be happy to withdraw that 250 for the 10 IAs. So whether or not we get more teachers, that's not a definite, is it? Okay.
Dr. Keith,
Yeah.
does David Crockett not use the math IXL?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not on the list.
They pay for it right now out of school funds. Or I think we actually pay for it instead of GMM. GMM goes to Boone, but this year GMM gave Crockett their subscription for free because of virtual. They didn't need it. And now Boone is requesting IXL as well.
in addition. So the IXL for Crockett's already in the budget, you previously approved that. So that would carry forward unless you as the board would change that.
So this total is what was pulled out of the budget. That, 111,100 is the total of all the non-reoccurring.
Yes, it's not been pulled out of the budget, that's just the additional
I mean, that's the
request.
price.
Yes, yes.
And that's if you take textbooks down to 885.
If you take textbooks down from 885 to 350 as
Oh.
requested, because, and that's why I had to go back and change the actual budget, because notice that that 535 is a reduction. So basically, the reduction in textbooks pays for all but $111,000 in non-recurring expenses, should you as a board choose to do that. Because if the textbook reduction wasn't in there, that, that would really be $646,000.
Right.
So these must-have items, we obviously can't do anything about. Correct?
That's correct. We're gonna get charged for them regardless. of
Those we don't need to really fool with. Optional budgets, that's where we need to start going out through here and nail them down, right?
Yes.
So principals to become 12-month employees. Do we need to take a motion per item, Dr. Flannery, or just, I mean, how are you gonna agree to put this thing on one?
You could entertain a motion to prioritize one or more of those items.
Okay, Mr. Flannery?
Can we have some follow-up information on this, principals of 12-month employees, Dr. Flannery? From your poll, your latest poll?
I did, and I spoke with each of them. The majority of them just flat out want to go on 12 months. The ones that are hesitant are afraid that if they go on 12 months, somebody will just give them more work to do. And, they're like anybody else, they want family time, downtime, vacation time.
So are you saying 11 months and a half?
No, I'm saying 12 months. They'll still be paid less in other school systems, even at 12 months.
Even with the 5,000 more and then the
Well,
3,000 more, the 5,000 more.
12 months, the additional month would actually be more money than 5,000 for about all of them.
It's one, okay.
That's straight up.
How much are principals actually in the facilities over the summer during the off time? How much are they actually there?
It's hard to say, some more than others, and when they are there, it's off the clock. They don't keep regular office hours because they don't have to, they're not being paid to. That's a tough question to answer, but
Usually you do for a big draw in education as you're off during the summer, you've got some extra time. That would be part of what I think is the draw to that. I don't understand that they're taking advantage of that, why would we pay them for not being there? That's,
Well, I guess that, on that, if you put them on 12, then they have to be there.
they'd have to work 240 days, they sure would.
Let me jump in here,
Whether
please.
like it or not, please.
If you go down through and you see it, we got agriculture teachers and ROTC are on 12 months. Are they there at school every day in the summer?
No.
So,
ROTC are there a lot, ag teachers are required to be doing other things.
well, my point though is, just like Whitney said, or Mr. Riddle said, you got, Dr. Riddle. Some of your principals are there working, 3-4 days a week in the summer, them 2 months. I don't know what their best way is, but my only argument would that be is turn it on the flip side, and ROTC and agricultural teachers are on a 12-month paid cycle, but they're not there 12, every day for 12.
Well, and that, Dr. Flannery, how many years does that go back to, they were on a paid cycle?
Ag teachers, probably since the 30s,
So maybe
1930s.
you need to relook at that.
It's also in state
Why
law.
pay, maybe you don't need to pay them.
And ROTC, that's a requirement from the Defense Department.
Because they pay for part of them, don't they?
They pay half their salary.
So, I'm fine if you don't want to do this for the principals for 12 months, because some of them are working probably 12 months or 11 and a half months.
I
But-
wanna do something, I'm sorry, I wanna do something for them, I'm just not sure whether it's gonna be the 12-month or the 5,000 and 3,000 for assistance, I don't know which is, I
And
wanna do one, but I'm not sure which.
And I'm not trying to not do something for them, it's just, when he says part of them want it, part of them don't want it,
Right.
I think the ag thing you bring up is interesting, but if I'm gonna pay somebody 12 months, I want them to work 12 months, and I don't know, am I doing damage to the ones that really don't wanna work 12 months, and I don't blame them, because like Dr. Riddle said, I mean, if, they
Well,
don't work, they don't have to, that's why they put in for the job, so, I mean, how do we know if we're doing the right things on that? I mean, I don't know.
the thing, the difference between the 5,000 and making them a 12-month employee looks like, what, 7.5 K? If you give them a 7.5 K, you'd make it better?
So the
But-
combined, like 12-month employees and then the 5K for high school, that's 154, and then if you do the other, it's 133. So you're within, it's actually a little less
So they're
to do
really
5
close,
to 3.
yeah.
It's close. And that's approximate, by the time I plug it in, there could be.
So you really need to give the principals 10, but the only thing is, and this is, maybe this is just me, but you say we're not paying them if they're not there, which I understand, I don't wanna pay somebody and they're not there. But what's the argument if they're there and they're still not getting paid?
I agree with both parties, I just don't know what the answer is, I mean, I don't,
I'm sorry, the 12-month is just for the principal, not the assistant, right?
yeah, what we're saying is some of them don't wanna be there.
I know,
And you're
that's-
making them.
All right,
That's
let's
why I
give them
think
11
the
and a half to go with.
We're missing the point here. The point is,
Go ahead.
they're salaried. All we're doing is reimbursing, we're making up the difference. We shouldn't be asking to work any more time, because there's some principals that can get it, they'll work at home on their laptops. If they're getting the job done, I mean, we already know they're putting in the hours, whether it's ball games at night during the school year. All we're doing is compensating them for the time, we're adjusting their salary. They're more than 40 hours a week for the most part. Some of their 70 hours a week during the school year. So we're not asking them to work more time, we're just asking them to we're just leveling their pay for what they are doing.
Very good point, thank you. Yes, well said, okay, is that,
That's exactly what I was
Okay.
gonna say, it's gonna work out in the
Yeah.
end. Yes.
I just needed some clarity.
But that
So
it
then-
will,
so-
it'll work
so-
out in the end.
So, Dr. Flannery, or somebody help me, how do you guys wanna add, take away, how do y'all wanna go down this list and let's move on with it?
Let's go,
I think we need to prioritize,
Well, I think that's what we do, can we go down the list and do it one at a time?
And I think that is, I personally think that's a good priority.
I like David's point, okay, somebody make a motion to do
I'll make a
something with
motion.
that. Help me, what is it?
I'll make a motion, we do that, principals become 12-month employees and the principal 5K for the high school only. And I guess we're going, I'm sorry.
Well, what I wanted to say was, but it's still all in up in the air. We know our numbers from April.
Yeah, we ain't voting on the budget yet, we're just
I
voting
understand
on.
that, but you're
We're-
working,
we're
we may
going.
not be doing nothing.
Yeah, what we gotta do is to get through it, don't we? Okay, so we got a second, is that a second? Okay, that was a second. Mr.
One
Flair,
last question. So we're gonna go down through here and see if we have support for every item.
adjust them as we go, I think that'd be the only way to do it.
Good
We'll
deal.
never, we'll be jumping all over the place if we don't. Don't you
That's
think?
normal, but yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
The only thing with doing that is you're gonna have support for all of it, you're not gonna have it for all of it.
Right.
Unless you ask everybody, what's the number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5,
Yeah.
you won't get there.
Well, do you think we just do this and then go back and prioritize what we agreed on, because then we know we've agreed on all of it? Or is that a bad
Yeah,
idea?
no, that probably would work, that way you take out stuff
Hear
that
that?
the majority.
At least we know whatever's left, we voted on it, and then we'll have to decide what we don't. Well, no, that was good, I mean, I'm following you, but okay, all right, let's vote, Jennifer, on Chad, Mr. Fleener. 12-month employees for all principals, nobody's telling them when they gotta work or what they gotta do. And did you say 5K?
Whoa, whoa. Everybody works for somebody.
No, you work for the director.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that point, I don't know what else. Did you add in the 5K too? Is that what I heard you say?
It looks like it's all together, correct?
Okay, I don't know.
That's the way I,
Yeah,
Your high school principal already 12 months.
yeah, so that's the reason I grouped them together.
so it's 12 months
Plus
plus 5,000.
5,000.
So you're paying them 12 months now, and you're gonna pay them additional 5,000.
Just the high school is getting the extra 5,000.
Okay.
For 5,000, unless you all change it.
This doesn't have anything for the assistant principal.
Not yet. So ain't there yet, it's a different box.
So if you do the step only, it's $154,000 and some change,
Two boxes down.
Yes.
right, to do both the principals and
Yeah, and the 5K for the high
the,
school.
well,
Yes.
Now, do we want, Mary Beth makes a good point, though, do you all wanna add assistants to that motion, or keep that?
Well,
Because she's right, when you go down two boxes, they've got 5K principal and 3K assistant principal in the same box.
yeah, but we could split that if we wanted to, but now, the assistant principals on the other area, Dr. Planner, on the other area systems that you sent us, you didn't mention anything about assistant principals, so they're not on a 12-month contract, they're still on 10-month.
True.
Okay.
10 and a half. Aren't the assistants, aren't they 10 and a
So
half?
let's just vote on this principal deal, and then we'll, second, okay? We'll address that in just a second. Since that's a totally different deal. Is that all right? Okay, let's vote, Jennifer.
Mr. Riddle? Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
yes,
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
yes.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Carries.
Okay, art supplies based on student enrollment, $3 per student above BEP.
I'll make that motion.
Not, if you wanna make a motion, then we just check.
All right, we got that motion, you second it?
Yeah, so we can discuss.
Okay, now, we got
Okay, so can we pull this out and put it on the non-reoccurring and see how that works out this year? The overall run of the year? Because I really feel like the board can afford to go ahead and do these non-reoccurring things out of our fund balance and set those aside at this point. So that gives us a little bit of wiggle room. It's not a lot.
Is there a difference in doing that, though?
Is there a difference?
In other words, at the end of the day, is it all coming out of our pocket?
It does, but we don't have to sit in our budget.
I thought it was supposed to be
Is it
KA.
all comes out of our pocket?
But it doesn't
I'm just
recur, I
asking.
mean, the,
Doesn't recur.
But I mean,
Said, that was
the
just
thing
is
is
it gonna make a difference?
the thing to consider is it doesn't recur, but you won't always have a $535,000 savings here on the books. That'd be the only thing we did.
Right. It can make a difference at the very end. Yeah.
All right, y'all okay with that? So what Annette's saying basically is let's skip everything and ain't reoccurring, vote on the reoccurring stuff, and then go back to the,
so I'll strike
No,
that
I'm
motion.
just asking if we can move this 24,000 to this, yeah, non-reoccurring, you're right, you said it right. I didn't hear it right.
So you're wanting to say we're only gonna do the art supplies for 1 year,
yeah.
and their supplies, so they won't have those supplies
Well,
in the next year.
I would like to see how it works out.
She's kinda wanting to see like if we take out all the non-reoccurring stuff through this whole thing, then where are we really at? And then start adding in the non-reoccurring stuff.
And I want to see where this goes with the art. I mean, are we getting our bang for the buck? Are they, you know, what are they using these art supplies for? Because he's gonna know what they've ordered and what they're using them for. And is there money left over? Or, that's what I wanna see.
How do you handle that in the budget, right? Because what I hear Ms. Buchanan saying is that when budget season comes along next year, we want to have to affirmatively do something to put this $3 back in the budget. How do you separate that in your budget to be able to catch that?
Well, if we allocate it for school, typically how we would do that is we'd go ahead and come up with the amount that school gets, and we would disperse those funds to the school, and then it would be, the bookkeeper would deposit those funds, and then the but he would initiate school purchase orders with the architect.
But will you charge it to an account difference in 711-00499?
No.
But then how do you know to take that, not budget for that next year, because it's going to be in the prior year budget like we have
My
now?
notes is telling me
I can see it working either way, but I mean,
We can move it on here.
if you do it that way, then if you,
He's gonna start with what the budget was this year, which will have the $3 in it, and that's what we'll look at going forward, unless somebody in here or Brad says, oh, well, it was really $3 one-time charge in there that we need to pull out.
And there could be a possibility that,
But you go down to the current year.
there could be a possibility that, we might have an increase in bus advertisement or whatever, and we get, the science is getting so much of it, and we can, swing some art supplies. I mean, you don't know what's gonna happen there either, so I just like to try this $22,000 out first.
And I could do something like this is a good point. So you see the science is right, I've got the budget document pulled back up. So Mitch, how I pull that out differently is you see the 71,100,499. I've got an 802 prefix here for science. I could put another prefix there for the art.
well, at the end of the day, we're still saying we're doing it, we're just, sort of Brad where he's putting it, right?
And that's where I would put it.
So,
Put it in the budget and then review it again next year. And then if we don't pull it out.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
She said, she said pull it out of our fund balance and pay for it and not put it in.
She was just trying to see the difference at the end of the day, what all the reoccurring expenses are and what the optional reoccurring.
Right.
So this ain't something you have to do, right?
Yeah, because next year we will have the 11,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay, but either way, we're gonna do it, we need to vote on it.
I'll vote down. Non-recurring, right?
Yes.
Right now, the motion,
Motion was to approve $3 per student, art supplies based on $3 per student.
all right, we're ready.
Second by Ms. Buchanan, yes, ma'am.
Mr. Masters,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. Irvin, Ms. Buchanan,
Yeah.
Ms. Dellinger,
Yes.
Mr. Fleener,
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Meredith,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes,
Carries.
thank you. Now we're at 4 CTEIA.
I would certainly be willing to go with one of each high school to see how that works out. I find it a safety issue for our PTE people. We need to be two places at once, and that's not possible. So, I would like to make a motion for two of those, one at each high school, see how they work out.
All right, do we got a second?
I'll second. How many do we have now?
None.
All right, any conversation?
This might sound a little, so somebody's gonna go from cosmetology to,
Well,
auto mechanics.
there's several that sometimes they need to be both places.
Okay.
So wherever that person is needed to assist, that's where they need to be. Because normally they already have what they're supposed to do, and the instruction's been done by the normal teachers, they just need to be working someplace else with other students, that's on a different level.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Fleener?
Ms. Buchanan, I think that's a great idea, but I just can't, the reason I can't support it, you got one person with 15 or 16 programs, and they got 15 places to hide because they think there's another one. That's my only thought on it.
I'm
Just,
sorry, would you repeat that?
if you got 16 programs, and somebody that's in one program is gonna think they're at their other 15 places, if you didn't have a really, really good one, and I'm not saying you can't find that person, but there is a way that's not gonna work if you don't find that right
Well, yeah,
person.
you would have to find the right person, that's not,
And you're gonna have to manage it, I just think,
Hiring, that's not for us to decide who goes in that position, but yes, it would be someone that, you know, have to be a strong personality.
All right, anybody else?
I don't think we'll have any control over the
No.
principal. If the principal needs that IA alert, and a teacher that's sick or something, that's where that IA is gonna go.
Oh,
I mean, I understand what she's saying, and I agree 100%. I don't think we got control of it.
roll call vote, Jennifer.
Mr. Riddle,
No.
Mr. Irvin,
I'm gonna say, yeah.
Ms. Buchanan,
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger,
Yes.
Mr. Fleener,
no, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond,
Is this on 2?
2,
Okay, yes.
Mr. Meredith,
We're gonna talk about IAs a little further down, and we probably need them, so yes.
Mr. Masters,
No.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Carries.
That was about 50,000, right?
Right.
Yes. I'm like, yes, I think you're gonna need them anyway, so they probably won't never work out CTE, but they'll be there. Okay, now, this one had principals 5K, assistant principals 3K. Do we need to discuss assistant principals 3K?
Is that only for high school?
For everybody.
That would be everybody.
I don't know, who come up with that?
I thought that if we made them 12-month employees, that this would only have been the high school.
Well, you had two different boxes. Fleener had it up here, and then this, David Hammonds has it down here, 5K for principal, 3K for or assistant. So you want to elaborate on thoughts on that?
I was just trying to, we're roughly 100 out of 146 systems where we pay our principals. And I'm just trying to close that gap a little bit to where we don't lose our principals to other systems.
Right. So we got the high school cover, or the principals, we need to do the assistants, yes, ma'am.
Oh, so the first part, the principal 5K, instead of adding 76,000 to the budget, we added 136,000 up to the first one.
Yeah.
So we're going to delete really that principal 5K line, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Is that right, David?
Yes, sir.
Y'all get them 5 plus.
No, I'm talking about the high schools. The high schools are already 12 months, so they're doing nothing.
That was in the first motion we voted on earlier.
They're getting 5 also in the first motion.
Okay, so we're really just talking about assistants.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger.
How much would it be for 3,000 for assistants?
Right here is,
I'm sorry, I thought that was
56.
together.
That's
That's
just the high school
okay.
principal.
yeah.
I'll make that motion.
You gonna make that a motion?
Total.
Yeah.
So 3,000 for principal.
All right, we got a second. All right.
Second.
Yeah, 12.
Just the 56?
No, okay.
56,
For
16.
assistants
Sir.
only. How many assistants do you? 15.
16.
16, so this includes high
All of
school assistants and
Yeah,
elementary.
all assistant principals and assistants.
And how much was it?
56, 616.
Okay.
And that's a fully loaded number, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because it
fixed costs,
calculates to like 18.
so fixed costs are in there. Yeah.
All right. Anything else? We got a vote? Yeah, that Mr. Hammond second. And,
Mr. Masters,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. Irvin,
Uh,
Ms. Buchanan,
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger,
Yes.
Mr. Fleener,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Meredith,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
yes.
Carries.
All right, athletic supplements, $30,000.
Okay, who are those for?
Every coach that gets a supplement. You just add that to the policy and then let the principal and athletic directors flesh it out. They'll have to come back to you so that you can put dollar amounts in the policy. Because supplements are controlled and governed by board policy.
Yes, Mr. Fleener.
No, that's who I was pointing at.
Oh,
I just pointed at.
Mr. Flannery, could we add a little bit more to that for the athletic trainers?
It's up
I
to you.
mean, is that, because we've always been they kind of been shorthanded and they get money for,
Now, you did put those trainers on 11.5 months.
but I'm saying supplies. They was,
That'd
they
be kind
sell
of,
their, kids go and get their, or what is that, physicals? And that's how they make their money. They get so much of that for physicals, and they're kindly coming up a little short. Sometimes if the kid goes to the doctor, they're missing that money for the physicals. And I was wondering if it would be, if we put a couple of $1,000 piece into athletic trainers to,
certainly could.
you see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So you're talking about what they need their
Their
supplies.
supplies, yeah, just their supplies.
That's kind of a separate appropriation. This is actually gonna go in people's pockets where you're talking about supply allocation.
Okay.
But certainly,
I was
if you
thinking
want
it was-
to put more money into the program, that'd be welcome. I'm sure they'd appreciate it.
Well, does that need to be a separate line item?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because that's what I do, athletic supplements. I misread.
So we're saying they need $30,000 for equipment /
No, this goes in people's pockets.
So,
Set salaries.
This will strengthen what the head football coach gets and the assistant soccer coach.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hill, this is getting coded to regular instruction teachers line for our athletic supplements. What's our total athletic supplements before these 30,000?
400,000.
How much?
400,000
For coaches?
system-wide for every sport, every coach.
is that salary or stipend?
That's the supplement, so that's would be your stipend. And that would be faculty and non-faculty coaches all combined. Band,
That's everybody gets a
soccer,
stipend.
everybody system-wide gets.
So how many employees we talking?
Oh,
And how,
I'd have to give you a guess without looking that up, but I'd say you're talking 40 or 50.
So the 30,000 will be divided amongst them.
Yeah, it's not most, and a bunch of them do more than one sport, as you well know.
Right, right.
and you said how much?
About
400,000.
400,000 system-wide.
And that's for an athletic supplement, but we charge it to regular instruction teachers.
It's in that category, instruction category, and that's, as far as I know, it's been done like that for 40-plus years, so I have not changed it, you know. I can certainly change it, but I've just not changed precedents on that.
Mr. Hammond?
Is that per sport that the coach gets a supplement, or they just get a supplement one
That's
time?
per sport.
Per
They
sport,
might be
okay.
the head football coach, but also the assistant softball coach. That's two separate.
Okay, so I'm making sure.
I don't think you've added any money to this in at least 4 budgets that I remember.
All right, we got a motion.
I'll make a motion.
We got a second. No second. You second? Then seconds it. Let's vote, Jennifer.
Mr. Masters,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yeah.
Mr. Irvin,
Yes.
Ms. Buchanan,
Yes.
Ms. Dillinger, Mr. Fleener,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Meredith,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Carried.
Okay.
Just an example, if you're interested, this is one of the sheets on the screen, high school coaching supplements. And this just gives you like band, for example, local music, yearbook, cross country, football, golf, soccer. So this gives you an idea of how many there are, and that's just one of the high school. There's a combined supplement as well, cheerleading, baseball, soccer. So that's how it all adds up, you know, when you're talking system-wide.
Dr. Clay, how would that be dispersed?
Will come, if the money ends up in the budget, it'll have to come back to the board. Because since you actually, that's board policy,
Right.
you'll have to carve it up. I would expect that the principals and athletic directors would have a recommendation, but ultimately the 9 of you would have to approve it.
So we just add money to all them supplements.
Just let Brad add that money to it and then come back after.
15 per side and they figure it out.
Right.
You could, that'd be the smart thing, keep you off from being here 2 o'clock in the morning trying to carve up $15,000.
For 2010.
So we like it.
You have 3 high school supplements, middle school combined teams, and then middle school. So there's three different buckets there, and there's.
So ultimately, one coach could get, if he coaches three different sports, he could get three different raises.
Yeah.
In a sense.
If they, yeah, if they truly
For the
coach
one
three
person.
different sports.
All right, high school interventionists. 2 high school interventionists.
I'll make that motion.
$150,000. Mr. Fleener makes that in the form of a motion.
I'd be honored to.
We got a second?
Second.
Can I ask a question now?
Yep.
Do we have math interventionists now? We do not.
No.
And how would they be utilized into the schedule?
They would not have students attached to them so that they could go into classrooms and pull out small groups and be true interventionists. They would help plan with the teachers, they would analyze the data, they would be support.
So do we already have a reading intervention, or
No.
LA interventionist?
We had one at Crockett a couple years ago, that was Cheryl Richardson. She was paid out of federal money. That money requires a true reading specialist, and she left us for a higher paying job.
Okay, motion
Would we-
second, Ms.
Could we
Fleener.
possibly get by with one that goes to both places, or would that be defeating
No.
its purpose?
We need a teacher who can build relationships with these kids who are struggling.
Oh,
They
work
pull
with
them out. They will be working with
not the
students.
teacher.
They'll be
Okay.
doing both. They will go in and help the teacher with different best practices for teaching that just-in-time instruction for learning loss that's coming down from the state. And then they will also work with small groups in classrooms.
Mr. Fleener.
You done, Ms. Dillinger?
I guess.
Okay. Dr. Keys, this may not be an every year deal, right?
Right, I'm asking for it for 2 years just for the learning loss.
Thank you.
Okay, let's vote.
Mr. Irvin? Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dillinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Masters? Mr. Riddle?
Yeah.
Mr. Day?
Yes. Okay. SPED 1 pre-K teacher, state compliance, absorb repurposing existing SPED IA. Help me out here, somebody.
Dr. Myers is the one that brought this, but basically, I'll just let her talk.
For our SPED pre-K, we serve 3 through 5-year-olds. Our voluntary pre-K, they cannot serve 3-year-olds. There are specific guidelines around how many 3-year-olds that we can serve. At Ridgeview, we have 2 pre-K special ed teachers. At Grandview, we have 1. Our special ed pre-K, they don't come Monday through Friday. So our 3-year-olds will come 2 days a week for a couple of hours. At Grandview, that's where we're requesting another teacher. There used to be 2 teachers there, and there was a need come up that we had to pull a teacher in the middle of the year a couple of years ago. But as you all know, this side of the county is growing, and we have more students who are coming into us as 3-year-olds from the early intervention system from birth to 2. We currently we can have 18 3-year-olds. We have 13 in the 3-year-old class down here, with 11 that we need to test and get placed by the time they turn 3, which in some will be the summer. We are also currently busing some 3-year-olds over to Ridgeview just to leave a little bit of space over there just in case. So we have room for 5 more. We are testing 11. So
Okay.
that's what that need is there.
Okay. Thank
How
you.
many open spots you have over Ridgeview?
Open spots before we meet capacity.
Jan and Mary Beth, and then everybody else.
I'm sorry.
Well, Michael, whenever you get done, you go
Okay.
ahead and then Mike wants to talk for a minute.
We have more. We have they have it set up, Chad, differently at Ridgeview, but we have more capacity. At Grandview, we have 31 students right now. This changes every week. And then at Ridgeview, when I pulled these numbers last week for this budget meeting, we had 28 students.
Okay.
So, but that's a long bus ride for a 3-year-old.
All right, who else? Oh, Mike, yeah, you can go.
Before she sits down,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'd like to combine the SPED 1 pre-K along with the 2 high schools. And before she sits down, she had discussed a little bit with Whitney and I last meeting on some numbers for the SPED high school.
Where's them high schools at, Mike?
Right below it.
Right below, okay.
I'd like to combine
Put 'em
those
together.
two. Yeah, I can, I'll put that in motion, I guess. But I would like Dr. Myers, if we get a second, to explain the high priority of this high school sped teacher.
Can we get a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Please, Ms. Meyer.
We have a high turnover rate at our high schools in special education, and we have fantastic high school sped teachers who have been there for several years, and they are overworked. They really are. They have on their caseloads, this is for Washington County at both high schools. We have 3 teachers at each. Our caseloads are 50, 35, 46, 41, 45, and 43. Now, when you have a kid on your caseload, that means you're responsible for their IEP, their assessments, their progress monitoring. You're in charge if they get in trouble, if they have truancy issues. You will pretty much are in charge of the success of that kid, and you're also in charge of teaching all these other kids who aren't on your caseload. So as you see, those numbers are pretty high, and that's a big responsibility. Stakes are high at the high school because we're trying to get them graduated. So I called around to other districts to see kind of what the average is. So I looked at 5 other districts. For their high school caseloads, the average is 25, 22, 20, 22. And these are, there's one city district, the rest are county. There was one district that was 45, and that district pays about $12,000 more than we do. So it really is a need. The folks at our high school, they're doing a fantastic job, but they need help, and I really feel like we would be able to keep more teachers, and that's just best for our kids if we don't have a high turnover rate.
Right.
This is beyond the need, I think.
It should be up here in the other.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, that's what I'm getting at.
How many sped teachers would that be on both sides of the county?
It would be 4 who do intervention. We have our CDC kids, and they're not in this count because they're fully staffed well.
I'll make a motion.
What the hell?
You
Amend
made
that,
the motion.
amend it, put it up there.
Well, I mean, we can go ahead and put it Friday. I think it's fine.
Thank you. Thanks.
Roll call vote, Jennifer?
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin? Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Carries.
Okay, Ms. Wagner's asked for an additional nurse at Boones Creek Elementary School.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Second.
any discussion?
That puts you 2.
Yes.
So does that, do we have up to you have students, enough students there through the BEP, don't we get 1 nurse for every so many kids?
1 nurse for every 3,000 students. If this
We're short on
legislation passes, you'll get 1 nurse for every 750, so this might be budget neutral. And I'm
Is this-
hearing that legislation has legs, so to speak. It's got a
I
lot of
thought that
support.
was in the COVID-19 plan.
No, that's currently the General Assembly is looking at funding it through the BEP.
Okay. So if the BEP funds, then should have money to
You'll
go
get-
back in our budget.
Or give them a raise.
Out for nurses.
Yeah, or you'll get over 3 times as much money, so this won't be a big.
I mean, so Kelly,
Well,
can I ask?
Yeah, me too, I want to go ahead, anyone.
Well, Kelly, do you have any needs? I know you got needs, everybody's got needs, but do you have any pressing needs?
Having a
besides this
full-time
one
position,
nurse?
adding the additional full-time position at Boones Creek, to me, that's a need, it's a have-to. We currently have 1 full-time nurse there, and we have a float nurse who is based there, but since the schools combined, we've not been able to use her as a float nurse. We've not been able to pull her. We've not been able to utilize her for education, which is what the intent was, because the need at Boones Creek is so great.
So if we put her there, then we still need 1 more to go for a float, right?
Well, we already have that position. The float nurse right now is basically working as a full-time Boones Creek nurse. She's not doing her role because she's not able to. We've had to pull people.
We're just adding an extra one to cover, because she can't use that part, she don't. Okay, yes, sir.
And I haven't seen our, I don't remember where our enrollment figures are, but Boones Creek compared to Ridgeview, Grandview.
I have a document. Elliot, can you pull that up?
Is it in here somewhere?
I can pull it up. Boones Creek's the largest K-8 school now.
Elliot has something that you can look at.
Don't look until you get.
But if you look at the numbers, Boones Creek is 786 enrollment, and then, or Boones Creek, and then Ridgeview is 731.
But tell them how that's not apples to apples, though.
Of course, this looks a little bit different than what I have. There you go. Okay, so if you see the red, that is the school that has the highest clinic rates, the highest visits, and consistently it's Boones Creek, except for that 1 year, and that was with Grandview, and it was just a 246 patient difference. And if you look right now at our COVID numbers, they're like this week, they've had 742 follow-up this entire year. Boone and Crockett are tied at 714. So the K through 8, is doing more than they are.
How many nurses are at both high schools?
One. It's a different population. The elementary kids have more needs.
All right, anybody else? Let's vote.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle? Mr. Irvin? Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yeah.
Mr. Day?
Yes. Very well. 10 ayes for K-8, Ms. Dellinger.
Okay, these are concerns that people brought to me, school employees. I thought that these employees could help with catching students up from academic loss from COVID. However, if principals don't feel, I agree with the principals. Oh, everybody wants lower, student-teacher ratio. That's not guaranteed though in this budget. So I'm willing to withdraw this,
Okay.
since there wasn't much of a.
Very good, then. One counselor at Midway.
That wasn't me.
That
was Dillinger.
no, that was me.
That was
So-
Buchanan.
We had asked last year that, that the one from Asbury split the time between Midway and Asbury, but that wasn't possible. So, I'm asking for one there. This is, the place we send our kids that are struggling. These are the place we send our kids when they, are suspended for school. And I think it's a huge need for somebody to be up there.
Why can't we work, why didn't it work out where,
It just doesn't work out.
Let me ask you this. Well, and I may have said this the last meeting, not taking away from what you're saying, but why do we have to make these recommendations? Why wouldn't staff make this recommendation? If they feel like there's a need, why does the board member have to bring up counselor at Midway instead of staff saying we need a counselor at Midway?
So the staff at Midway did ask for that. I just.
That is so. Mr. Murphy asked for a counselor 18 months ago,
Okay,
2 years ago.
I understand.
Mr. Gray at Asbury intimated that he just couldn't do without his 5 days a week because of their caseload.
Okay.
So,
Okay. That's all my question was. Anything else? Motion?
Yes.
Second? Second. Roll call vote, Jennifer.
Can you repeat the motion, please? I'm sorry.
Add one counselor at Midway.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin? Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
no, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yep. Okay, before we get into this, let's take a 5-minute recess for Jennifer. Here we go. Maintenance increase, employee compensation, 10% increase. Mr. Patrick.
Mr.
We'll throw something out there for us.
Mr. Hale.
Mr. Hale, maintenance increase, 10%.
It's loud.
That's a mouthful.
You don't your own time, bud. I'll turn it over to Mr. Packer. Do you have that on your, you put that in the documentation? No, that's all right. No.
We won't put it
We'll start with, and I'll be sure that y'all get this put in your box, Ms. Jennifer, I'm sure will do that for us. Look at the custodial salary schedule. Washington County Department of Education starts at $9.35 an hour. Johnson City School starts at $11.80, Greenville starts at $10.81, Sullivan County $10.10, Kingsport City $9.84, the market industry is around $9.83. Washington County Department of Education employee custodian tops out after working 25 years at $11.69. Johnson City starts at $11.80. After you've been at Greenville City Schools for 15 years, you're making $14.96 as a custodian. After in Sullivan County for 10 years, you're making $13.19. We never see that kind of, after 25 years.
You said 1169, so 25 years.
Yes, sir.
That's this pay scale.
That's correct. That's just custodian.
Now at $166,000. Reoccurring.
But I don't,
Now, in our skilled employees such as HVAC technicians, plumbers, electricians, carpenters that are worth their weight, we start out on level 3 at $14.75 an hour. Sullivan County starts out at $16.84, Johnson City at $18, Greenville Schools 19, Bristol 1946, City of Kingsport $15.92. Market industries around $19.39. Hawkins County starts out at $14.26. They're less than us. But after you stay there 10 years, you're making $19.44 an hour. After you've been here 10 years with us, you're making $16.23. And people say, you mean, you can't find an HVAC technician? No. What about, I'll be happy to try to answer some questions for you if I can, if I've got the data. I think those numbers pretty much speak for themselves.
So what does that cost? I mean, what are we doing? How much are we getting?
$166,000.
I see the
I'm asking for a 10% raise
across the board.
On the base.
That's from base level 1 through level 3 and lead. I've got a few lead guys there.
I'll put that in form of motion.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Mr. Meredith?
I'm trying to remember, do we adopt the pay scales?
Yes, when you adopt
So
the budget.
this change that we're making right here, Phil, this will change the pay scales?
Yes.
So we will at some point adopt those, right?
Because we're not actually giving raises, we're giving
I'm
raises to
asking you to
the,
put
to
it
the
in the
base.
budget.
In the budget.
Yes.
Planner.
So this will be separate from pay raise. It's completely separate.
It's bringing the maintenance up.
Jump in there.
In
My
the-
department, at the point you all adopted this for FY '22, we raised every single box on the pay scale for every maintenance pay scale by 10%. That's what we
Then if they get a raise,
And then if you give a 1 or 2% raise, that would go in addition. That's correct.
And that's about what we done with cafeteria workers and stuff.
It's exactly what you did over a 2-year period. You gave them 5% 2 years in a row.
And the step is 1% a year.
Approximately,
I mean,
yes.
it looked like it was
Yes.
Schedule 1, maybe 2.
Yeah, when you get to the teachers, it's different.
But on the field pay
Yes.
scales, it were like.
Go ahead, Mr. Flainer.
You know, this is my third budget, which is a lot less than most of these, but, I don't like when we just single out one. If we're going to look at the pay scales and try to see if we can help on some of these pay scales, which like, Mr. Patrick's saying, there's people that well need to raise, but I think we need to look at these pay scales individually and do some tweaking on them, all of them. Not just pick and choose who's gonna get one, who's not. I mean, just like you said on the custodians a minute ago when you were talking about that $400,000 in coaching supplements, that's 2/3 of what we're paying 33 custodian personnel for coaching supplements. Let that sink in just a minute.
Well, your coach's supplement is still low to some other schools.
That 400,000 might be amongst a couple hundred people.
I don't know if I need to do a lot. Could be big
Yeah.
deal more.
Well, and Chad, I'm with you, but at the same time, I
You're
think
yes.
that's what we're doing. We're taking them one at a time. And right now, Mr. Patrick's the only one that stepped up and asked for his people, so I suggest anybody else needs to ask for theirs if they want one. But I mean, obviously, I love pay good. I want everybody to make more money. They work harder, to have more money, I think.
Yeah, where we at on nurses?
We ain't talking about nurses.
We don't, we
Hey, let's vote on this.
we don't compare to other counties,
It does.
and it's hard to get people to stay, especially at the smaller schools. Because they're only, we do it by the number of students.
All right. Anybody else? We're going back.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
Yes.
Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Oh, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Carries.
All right. Well, we didn't talk about these textbooks. Or we done talked about?
Well,
That's a non-recurring thing.
so, yeah, that's on the bottom.
That we need
Alright.
to urgently do that.
So let me ask you this, do we need to, I mean, all that's part of the overall budget. We still need to go through these, do we not? We got a program, we're gonna do them.
If you know the textbooks are gonna be approved, because that's a reduction, I can go ahead next meeting and pull that back out of the main budget document, because right now, $885,000 is what's sitting in that budget line for textbooks for next year. So if you all are all in agreement with that, then I'll just simply take that back down to $350.
All right, let's try to get through these next ones.
Well, real quick question, I mean, if the staff's saying, hey, we don't need 535,000, who are we to say, yes, we do? So, we need to take it out of your budget.
Take it out, let's ask.
That-
Yeah,
While we're on that topic, that 200,000, we bought extra textbooks. So can we take that out of the 350 as well, or you still need 350?
Still need it.
It's a separate budget year. So it all affects the fund balance the same way at the end of the day. But it's a separate budget year.
So should we add more to that to make sure that we don't go over the 350? I mean, is there a hard stop, or?
Certainly the board's decision.
well, let's just leave it till we had to pull out fund balance last year. 'Cause they're, I mean, you thinking we're gonna go over 350 again this year?
I'm not sure, but we did last year.
Any suggestions? Brad, what do you suggest? Help us out. What do you feel comfortable we need to do?
You're telling me it's a hard stop That'll be the only purchase orders that'll be issued next year will be 350 max. And if there's any change in that, I'll notify the director of schools immediately. But as far as what's approved, that's all I'll sign off on and approval on my side. It's 350.
And if it needs more, you can bring it back to the board.
That's what you.
Kind of like Dr. Turner did this year.
Dr. Turner,
Yeah.
do you know how long it's been through this?
No, I don't. We went for years and never spent anything. It was completely taken out, zeroed out. I mean, it was a miracle. Last year we were able to spend what we did, and it was an ELA adoption year, so you didn't have a lot of choice. So this is,
So, I mean, just to be clear, I mean, our educational experts have looked at our textbooks for next year and said, we only need $350,000. Is that correct?
yeah,
What's the adoption?
Okay.
You determine that.
CTE, I think. There's not much. You may not need this much.
Then I would be comfortable with
It seemed like, Ashley, weren't you wanting some AP books as well?
Yes.
It's a low year. You may not need 350.
The College Board for AP requires that our textbooks be in a certain year and they're out of date, so they need to be purchased. If we're gonna continue AP testing, they need to be purchased.
Okay, so instructional supplies, Daniel Boone High School, David Crockett High School, reference worksheet, Dr. Keys, we're just leaving that alone. Right,
Yeah, I'll go ahead and modify the budget with, on the textbook, and I'll just pull that off, I guess. For the next meeting. We did skip technology request.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought we did that earlier. Did we not talk to Curtis about that a while ago?
This is for the high schools, and
He was talking about high schools. He said-
Something else Dr. Key wants.
This is different.
Huh?
Dr. Keys, this is a different.
Ashley's.
Curtis didn't stand up there and tell us he needs something for 2 high schools and 2 middle schools?
Yes, but that's a separate item.
Oh, that was
Ashley
crazy.
wants something else.
Oh, Ashley wants something else. Okay, all right, let's go. What is it?
I've asked both of my principals to meet with their teachers, and they created a list of instructional needs such as like Samsung tablets, water boxes to go with it, some printers, some webcams, some special cameras for science, and all of that's included in my
Okay.
technology line.
All right, we got somebody on that motion.
Can I just make a motion that we accept all of these, because I don't think that there's anybody gonna turn down any of these.
Okay, does anybody have any disagreement with the rest of these on this list?
I do.
Dr.
I'm
Plant,
sorry.
go ahead.
ESSER 2 was approved about 3 hours ago, so that $150,000 for construction of the playground equipment, that's, you've got it.
Okay,
You won't have to fund that internally.
So do we lower that to 120?
You could, if the board wanted to, take it every bit out of ESSER 2.0.
So going off of that, Mr. Patrick can probably help with this. He had someone meet with him about installation of the donated equipment. Is that correct?
I did.
And what was their figure to install that?
I don't have them here. in front
what's
of me,
this
but
270, is that what
It
it
was
was?
around $270-some thousand just to install the equipment that's donated.
It was actually like 300 to install that. And then they said they could put all new for 270,000.
Yeah, it's, I forgot how many square feet concrete. I mean, these are all surface mounted equipment, so the concrete surface had to be continuous, and then it all mounted, actually bolted down the concrete.
So are you saying that we can buy new cheaper we can install?
We got a proposal on
Is that what
I
you're saying?
think that was the motion Mr. Riddle was making, wasn't it, to
Yeah, I
just
think
do it all?
what we need to do is just look at just doing it all, and I think the donors have been spoken to about it. That equipment was non-ADA approved, so we can't install it anyway, really. And the donors, that's a sad thing, but it's the sad truth. So we can actually buy a new set and have it installed less money.
But we don't have approval to use ESSER money for purchase of new equipment, just to install what we've got on inventory.
Right,
Now, I'm not saying we couldn't go back and get it, it might be
Right.
easy.
but, I mean, we can't really install that anyway, it's not ADA compliant.
But what we could do is modify this to what?
So.
120?
Depends on what that money should be able to be transferred to clean.
What I'm wondering is, could you go ahead and put in here what it takes? Okay, so you said 150 will put it together.
No, that's just how much we put, months ago, that's what we thought would assemble it, and apparently it's not. But that's what you've got approved today.
So what I'm saying, what I'm getting at is, what have I got to approve to make up the difference in my budget?
Another 150.
Yep.
120?
120 to get
So-
270. 270 was a quote.
So we can change the 270 to 120, and this board can approve to purchase that, make the difference up in the equipment.
Right.
Yes, and then we could actually maybe bid that.
Yeah, but it'd be in our budget, the number, we'd have the numbers in our budget.
Could it be 270 in the budget?
270 in the budget, 150's took care of it. If anybody wants to put that in motion.
So moved.
About for your co-op,
The-
12 US.
We had 270 to buy and put it together. Dr. Flannery's got 150 to put it together already through ESSER. So really what we're gonna do is approve 120 to buy, to make up the difference, to do the whole deal.
That might be a little close.
Yeah, we might adjust it.
We already put 300 and.
I would, by the time, you know, by the time you get maybe a sunscreen around it or something like that, I mean, you know. Umbrella, can't plant.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
If you bought the equipment with budgeted money, I wouldn't have to ask for an amendment to ESSER. We could still use the
That's
150
what I
to
was getting
assemble
at.
it.
Yeah, that's what I thought we was gonna do.
Yeah, just do it.
That's what I'm saying we do, okay.
Just put that in with the line.
150 is in ESSER for the construction,
Then I added another 150.
or whatever they decide.
The only thing we gotta be careful on that is if labor is, I don't know what's more of the labor or material. Cause we only got 150 to put together, so if the material's 180 and we only budget
You buy a
150.
package deal, you're right on that.
Oh, okay, so good. Well, you can make that.
Yeah, we'll make it.
So we had a motion and a second on
I'll
that.
change that to 150. We'll see what happens.
Where's your motion?
I make a motion, we add 150,000 for playground equipment, added to the 150 that's already been approved for Boone Street Elementary.
Yeah. Hold on a minute, wait, Keith. So nobody else has anything else out of that non-return to take out for now? Because we're going to go back through this and we don't have money probably anyway.
I just put a placeholder down for lighting, LED, because we really don't know how much that would be. That would just be a guess at this point.
Okay.
So I don't really know what to do now.
So with that being said, Dr. Flannery, is it safe for us to discuss what we want to do with the 1%, 2%, or 3% raise again? Oh, I'm
We got a
sorry.
motion and a second. And that's second.
On this, can we vote? Or-
Yeah, on this, go ahead.
Let's go ahead and
Well, I
vote.
have another question.
Is it on this?
For the playground.
What we gonna do with that?
Playground equipment? They're going to sell it.
They are, or that's.
They are.
I mean, it's not in our possession.
Okay.
So it's still in the possession of the gentleman that donated it. I don't know what he wants to do with it. We've been in discussion with, Play World or Play Safe, I can't remember the company we talked with, but, I mean, that equipment that he was wanting to donate is probably good for a church, maybe a small daycare or something. But for 800 kids to maybe be on that every day, or 500 kids every day, it's.
So it's his problem, not ours.
So, yeah, pretty much.
I'm sure it will sell.
I think he can too, yeah.
It's awful nice though. It's like that don't come around all the time.
I'm just, yeah, I think it's,
Dr. Flair, were we not in on the discussions when he was buying this equipment to make sure that it was something we could use?
First I heard of it was his company, he and his wife had bought it in China, and that it was going to be notated, and then months later, we figured out it was gonna cost more to install it.
So we weren't in the original
No,
discussions about what
nobody
we're
talked to
buying.
us at all before that purchase process started. We didn't know anything about ADA compliance, anything about construction costs. They bought it before the school was even finished and occupied. You know, and God bless them, but wish they'd have called.
All right, let's vote on this, and then Mr. Meredith's got something.
Mr. Baxter?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin? Ms. Buchanan? Yes. Ms. Dillinger? Yes. Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes. All right, now, before we get into, I guess our final deal will be which category we take. Mr. Meredith's got something on dietary.
On if you go to page 8 of the detail that Brad's got our first budget, down in the food services, 73,100. Let's all find that. And, of course, you know, we have a separate dietary fund that handles all the food services activities. Mr. Hale this year has moved the director's salary. You'll notice that's all zeroed out. He's moved the director's salary to dietary. What I would request that this board do is have Mr. Hale budget the health insurance for all the dietary employees in the dietary fund, and leave this 600,000 out of our fund. If operationally dietary's running in the red, then, you know, I'm all for moving money from our fund balance to dietary's fund balance to take care of it. So I would make that in the form of a motion to add that thing.
Motion is second, any other questions?
They're all Washington County employees, so you just pulling it out of dietary funds, or you pulling it out of
I brought it out, explain
County?
So it's set up like this, because it's been like this for decades. So what this does do is it'll add an additional $500,000-$600,000, whatever that number comes in, to the dietary expenses each budget year. It bankrupts the dietary fund inside of 2 years probably, so it's not, I don't want you to think that the general fund's going to save $600,000 because we'll have to keep them afloat. We'll be transferring that same money basically back to them in a very short time. There was some capital projects I know Caitlin was working on where they built the fund balance up. So what would happen is if we did this, you would probably fund those right out of the general fund because dietary won't have the funds to do both.
So
And
you're saying they can't withstand
no,
paying their own insurance?
no, not long term.
Right.
Now, they have about a 1.5 million in their fund balance right now. I'm just saying that goes away pretty quickly inside of 2 years.
Okay.
And we'll be funding the same amount. You will, as a board, and I've talked to auditors, have to set a minimum balance you want to keep in the dietary fund because you don't want it to go zero, obviously. So you'll need to, if you do this, you need to realize we're going to be basically funding that same amount back to dietary by an interfund transfer. You'll have to set a minimum threshold. For example, I'm just giving this as an example. Let's just say you say you don't want the dietary fund to go below $500,000. I'm just throwing that number out there. Anytime it does, I'm going to be doing an interfund transfer monthly, quarterly, whatever it takes to bring them back up to whatever that amount you set. You will need to realize that the points of measurements, how I've been showing you the trends and the progress, that all goes away because the whole benchmark changes. The audit reports that's been done for decades will be different, because you'll be throwing in this extra expense. So,
But it was inflated numbers to start with because not everything come out.
Yeah, it's never included it to begin with.
So this board and the previous boards have always thought dietary's making money when they're not because the general fund subsidizes it.
We don't know what they're not making, because it don't look like they're not making any, it looks like they're making.
So what would be the benefit of doing this?
Well, it shows you how the operation runs. It shows you whether, I mean, so how are we performing? I mean, dietary to me is like a business, you know, it's like a, you know.
They just give true numbers to what they're doing.
And you want to keep in mind, the progress that I've showed you they've made, that's still real, because you're using the same benchmarks.
It was.
You know, when Caitlin came in, the same benchmarks that were being used then is being used now, and she really has, under her leadership, improved that fund balance $1.75 million. That's real, because it's the same benchmarks.
Is that benchmark? Is she got money in her fund balance because we're getting money from the U.S., from the government?
Well, that's help. I mean,
All right, now that's what I'm saying.
We don't expect.
We're
that to
getting,
continue.
I understand that. So when that don't continue, then we're actually gonna get money from the kids to pay for lunches. Our lunch deal is gonna crash, I'm afraid. We're getting X amount of dollars per child, I guess it's how.
They have to
Is that
still
how
get
that
the lunch.
works, Mr. Fleming?
We turn it in per meal, not per child, which I guess is the same thing, and that'll continue through the end of the summer.
They still have to go through the line to get the lunch.
I say leave it alone.
Mr. Chairman.
And I feel like if we need to go in here and take money from her budget and buy trucks or upgrades in the kitchen, we'll pull it out of her.
Well, I know that she's getting a plan together now.
That's
for
good.
There's some significant kitchen upgrades for both high schools. Well, some of that equipment's from the 70s, I believe. But if you do this, what I will show you, and I'll be quiet with that, no more questions, is this $600,000 that Mitch has pointed out, that's in line 73, 100, 207. I would have to go to the last page, line number 99, 100, 590. Right now, there's $260,000 in there because we have to pay the county $260 a year for, I think, another 3 years for the debt. I would be adding whatever we think we're gonna have to, it may not be this year, but when the dietary fund balance gets depleted, I would have to add that 500,000 probably back right there to that line. So I don't want you to think that we're saving $600,000, because we're not.
You're just moving it.
It will eventually wash out, and eventually we'll be putting that same money back in, because the program won't be able to sustain that.
Mr. Hammond?
I think what Mitch is trying to do, I agree with it, because if they get into a jam, we've always supplemented them before. We can reverse this decision at a later time. I think it's just it's a smart move.
See where it's at.
Yeah,
It
and
shows true numbers of what department's doing.
because we'll always take care of them.
I think everybody's ready.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin?
No.
Ms. Buchanan? No. Ms. Dellinger?
Yes.
Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes. All right, guys, I need one more thing, keep this clean. I've jumped a minute. We need a motion to accept the rest of the non-recurring expenses.
I make a motion to accept the rest of the non-recurring.
Is you gonna second it? Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Flanagan,
Now, I've got something after this, please, sir.
it ain't even about this?
It is, but
We're gonna vote?
no doubt.
Okay. All right, anybody else? All right, let's vote then.
Mr. Masters?
Yes.
Mr. Riddle?
Yes.
Mr. Irvin? Ms. Buchanan?
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger? Mr. Fleener?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond?
Yes.
Mr. Meredith?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes. All right, thank you all, Mr. Flanagan.
I'd asked Dr. Flannery about putting radios in the buses and the radios at the schools, so if there was ever any question, they could be able to radio in because they can't use phones. I don't know if, did you forward that to all the other board members? or
It was
that
in
just
the
me?
weekly report this last
Oh,
time.
so everybody saw it?
Yeah.
And that's not in here on this. Could Safe Schools not fund that? The Safe Schools grant?
We never get that much at one time, but if they let you cobble together 2 years, it might.
It's
So,
like
will you-
362,000.
About 350,000 first year. Sure would.
So could we take that out of ESSER two funds that we've asked for a rebate? Or, we're paying back some stuff? I just think it's really important, and I'd really like to get Ms. Hayes and
You could probably plug that into ESSER 3, and there's so much money in there, you'd never even notice it.
I'd really like to put that on this year's budget, but I'd like for Ms. Hayes or somebody to come back with a system-wide, what they think about that, but I think it,
You're wanting a bus to have you radio in it, that's radio to the,
schools.
Two-way radio.
well,
What we've
well,
done.
what I'm saying, they've all got telephones.
Can't answer.
If they got a problem, that's when they can answer.
What about if, let's say your child is on the bus and you don't know he's on the bus. What about if your child's on the bus and you go up there to pick him up and they're like, he's not here. He got on the bus. Well, ain't nobody on. Well, you live 45 minutes away, it's already been 45 minutes, let's say. I mean, do you know where the child is? What about if you go home to eat there, you think, well, what happened to him? Well, he may be still at school.
Yeah, but Chad, if you got a kid missing, you better be calling somebody, and
What about if
it's
they
a
don't-
whole lot cheaper than.
But you don't know that they're missing. If you're a school bus driver.
You're gonna know they're gonna miss when you get unloaded.
Well, we can vote on it, see.
So our policy is that the bus drivers don't answer the phone while they're operating the bus?
CDL requirements that.
CDL requires that?
And all our bus drivers are supposed to have a cell phone that we bought for them to use.
Somebody's sitting there shaking their head no, so I think that's incorrect.
I didn't have one, I'm just saying.
Well, I know they got them. I know that they're supposed to have them.
So how do other systems communicate with the bus driver?
Cell phone.
Cell phone.
As a principal, if we had to get a hold of a bus driver, there was some lag time because bus drivers are not supposed to answer their phone while they're driving. Now, we hope that they'll check it when they come to a bus stop, but sometimes it might be a long time before they actually come to a stop to let kids off.
At least if you had a CB, then you'd know somebody's yelling at you. Okay,
How safe is using a CB and a cell phone?
Well, CBs, every truck driver I know's got a CB in it. It must be pretty safe.
All right, he ain't got he don't have the same thing as we do. We're saying the state's telling us that my bus drivers cannot use a cell phone.
CDL, all CDL drivers cannot use cell phone while driving.
So how can they use a
they
CB?
stop and let it get out and pick it up, hop on it.
Well, truck driver can use the Bluetooth.
Well, a truck, all right.
Bus
then the
drivers
Bus
can't.
driver can
Bus drivers
stop
cannot.
and call the cell phone.
Well, Keith, son, we can just vote on it, and we'll vote no, that's all you gotta do, vote no, you understand?
I just,
So what's the motion?
Oh, well, we don't have one, well, we're talking, right, well, can we talk about this and then throw that in there?
Well, I mean, it ain't on here. I mean, I wanna see it on here.
Well,
And
then put it on there,
I wanna put it on there.
make a motion.
I'll make that motion, and I don't know how much it was, $390,000.
It's, first year'd be about $350,
$350.
and about $20,000 every year after.
We're gonna write it down.
Did you say something like that?
It's $200 per year per bus to be on the account, and then about, I think it was $3,100 for the equipment, and there'll have to be some money, because you'll have to put a base station at every school.
And I would, if you want to drum more support up over this, I think Ms. Hayes can come back with some,
I think we're all right, I think we need a second,
Bill,
if we get a second.
is this on the TACAN system? Are these?
It's the
VHF
same thing
radios?
as the sheriff's department uses, just
So it
exactly.
is $200.
In fact, I got my information from the sheriff's department.
But then you count equipment, $350.
Oh, got the radios are
Yeah,
$1,500.
that's what.
It's $3,100 per bus.
But I'll tell you what, the sheriff's department's got through rolling out a bunch of them. They might have a bunch of used ones that they have a surplus jet that you might get for nothing.
Yeah, and I know that 911 just got some new consoles too, and they're $75,000 each.
Do they go out there? I mean, why are they upgrading, I guess my
They
question.
they can't get parts and stuff for them. They don't, Motorola doesn't support these. You know, you got a bunch of extra ones that they don't have.
Do we get a second?
Not today.
Not today. Keep in your back pocket though.
That's all right, I got plenty of them.
Alright, so Brad Hill may have or may not have some adjusted numbers with I asked him to do a 1% raise and a 2% raise. Does anybody else have any requests that they want to explore at this time?
A what?
I have something I would like to explore.
Please.
I would like to explore us
Good luck.
doing the 2% raise. I would also like to explore us asking the county commission for a 2%. Teachers have not had a raise since 2002.
The
A raise?
2% just for teachers only.
Well, for the county commission,
Right, but you told me you wanna do 2% here
across the
For
board.
everybody.
and 2% more teachers only.
They've not had any type of raise since 2002.
But you
As
want
far
to
as-
go back to county commission for the other 2%.
Yes. We talked in collaborative conferencing the other day. This is what they've asked us to do for them, and I'm asking the board to support them, and if we're told no, we're told no. But at least we asked.
And that was an emotion?
And I put that in the form of a
I'll
motion.
second that.
All right, motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Picking and choosing again. Just a comment.
Dirty air.
Did you any idea what the county's doing? What the county get, do we know? Raise wise?
Brad is working on 2%, Brad.
Anything been proposed?
No.
I wanted him to see, I wanted him to let us know what it was with the adjustments we have made.
So,
I'll top your expense right here on the,
So basically what the motion is 4% for all the teachers, 2% across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. But the 2% of the 4% is only from the county commission. Everybody gets a 2%, so we ain't picking and choosing. But the teachers only, we are picking and choosing, they get extra 2%.
But didn't they just get a bonus too?
But we're
That
getting
came
more
That's
from the
people.
state.
It's
That came
different.
from the
We're talking
state.
It's funded differently, is what he said.
That came from the state. We as a county have not done anything since 2002 for the teachers.
No, there you go.
As far as
I remember
a-
giving raises when I was on the board for the first time.
So,
2% teacher only, the number on the screen, 779,401. That's teachers only, 2%.
Right.
That's the dollar amount with that. It's basically 1% for teachers only, 389,700.
So what's that grand total line item with 1%? Is that what you was doing?
I was going to, you know, are we at 2% for teachers only? Is
The
that-
motion's 2% for everybody,
for everybody.
2% teachers only additional.
Additional, okay.
Because isn't the governor, and the governor in his budget called for a 4%
Yes.
increase for teachers?
Through the BEP
Through the
formula,
BEP
you
formula.
know. Right. Well, by the time it gets here, it's not.
But it's not a true 4% though, right?
And they may redefine what a teacher is.
It's never basic though.
They're taking out counselors, they're taking out principals, they're taking out everybody but classroom teachers, which makes it worse when it gets to Jonesboro.
And that's only, BEP, that's only for the funded.
But it won't be a true 4%.
No, no, it won't even be half of that.
It won't even be 1%, will it, really?
It'll be more than one, but not quite two.
1
But if they redefine what a teacher is, it'll be even less, and that's what the legislators are wanting to do now.
you know, if we want to do 3% and just ask for, 1% across the board, that's fine with me too.
Let's just see what you've got right here.
The expense total for 2% teacher and 2% for everybody, well, 2% for everybody and then 2% additional for teachers is 78,197,000.
Okay. So that ain't 190,000,
197.
197.
We got
But now what is it without that 2% just teachers?
Without the 2%,
Yeah,
just teachers.
the just teachers, 2%, what is it without it? 'Cause that's what we're,
No, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's,
2%'s everybody.
Okay, 2% everybody's this number, 77,808.
And that's adjusted with any changes we made to
Yeah,
that.
that's everything y'all done tonight.
So we're at $77,808,147 if we give everybody in the system a 2% raise.
Plus everything you did tonight.
Plus everything we did tonight, which puts us how much over our,
Well, I'm still pulling that out, but I won't know that for sure until we get to BEP.
well, we can't really
Right.
finalize this till we get to BEP, I'm assuming.
Oh, 5, 6, 7, 8.
But I'm guessing 5 to 6 million out, yeah, that's where you're probably going.
Okay.
Shouldn't we wait till we get that number?
That's up to you guys. We can't do, you can't really do
We're
it.
just spinning our wheels. And keep in mind, when we ask the county commission for money, it's not just that we're getting.
Before we get there.
No. No, but the thing is, if they do give us anything, they gotta share it, so they gotta count that cost, yeah. Yeah.
Did you see Dr. Flannery going to the commission and asking for 2% raise just for teachers?
I think we're complicating it. Let's just level it off to do one number.
896 before you add the 2% step increase.
8,000,000? 896 what?
He was asking what y'all
Oh.
added, keep what.
We got a motion, second, we got a vote,
So the motion is
2%, 2%.
2%, which is a total of $78,197,847.68.
That's my estimate as of right now.
That's an estimate.
Tennessee.
So, let's vote.
Ms. Buchanan,
Yes.
Ms. Dellinger,
Yes.
Mr. Fleener,
No, ma'am.
Mr. Hammond,
Yes.
Mr. Meredith,
I'm gonna vote yes.
Mr. Masters,
Yes.
Mr. Riddle,
Yes.
Mr. Irvin,
I'm gonna do like my brother Fleener over there, I'm gonna say no.
Mr. Day.
Well,
Yes or no? That's what you tell us.
can I pull a Chad? Because I'm gonna say no. There ain't no way we'll do that. Okay, so, do we revisit this when we get our BEP money?
Yeah, when you find out if you got any
Yeah.
money, then you decide what to do.
Wow.
Bill,
I
Oh,
think,
sorry.
do you remember, it seemed to me like, and it was before I went on the board, and I'm trying to remember if the commission gives the teachers any kind of a raise. Seemed to me like they got a $1,600 bonus straight across the board from the commission years ago.
It was I was working at that time, and it was a $1,600 raise across the board.
It wasn't a raise, it was a bonus.
I got $1,600 a month, $1,600 a year added onto my check.
This was when George James was mayor, that's how far back it
That's how far
is that
back
when
it
the
was.
courthouse was built?
But I didn't think it was a.
That's when the
it
courthouse
wasn't
was
really
built.
Probably got them cell phones.
Only one thing.
It was, because I got
The buses got them cell phones at the same time.
salary.
That was the year they built the courthouse, and they lumped all that into
Yeah,
one
cell phone,
thing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, not when we built, it was before, I wasn't on the board.
I remember
Kurt McGee
the
talking.
teachers actually picketed the courthouse. I remember that now.
This list.
I don't think there's no reason to do anything else till we get money, do you?
I don't think we should do anything.
We voted on everything we want, so we want it all, I think we see what we got, and because we really can't, we
We
don't
may
take
get
anything away, you know what you got.
nothing else.
You need tax and pay.
Yeah.
And we need.
I mean, do you want, if we
And
come
we
in
have-
short, we're gonna get rid of teachers?
Yeah, we might. All right, anything else?
Yeah. He said that on the screen.
Meeting adjourned. I know I'm kidding.